The message reached Kael during breakfast, delivered by a nervous first-year who couldn't meet his eyes. "Marcus Webb's been downgraded," Hayes muttered around a mouthful of synthetic protein. She'd cornered him at the non-resonant table, where conversations died whenever he approached. Kid went from specialist track to basic support assignment overnight. Kael's fork clattered against his tray. What? Failed his quarterly evaluation. Couldn't maintain molecular cohesion for more than 30 seconds. Hayes shook her head. Shame. He had potential. The food turned to ash in Kael's mouth. Marcus Webb, 15 years old, nervous smile, dreams of becoming a structural engineer using Weaver abilities to reinforce buildings. Now relegated to inventory management because Kael had stolen 15% of his power. Hunger, 18/100. The notification pulsed mockingly. 2 days since the incident, and his body was already demanding more. "You okay, kid?" Hayes studied his face with the same intensity she'd once used to scan zone perimeters. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "Fine." The word came out strangled. "Just tired." He abandoned his tray and fled the mess hall, but there was nowhere to hide. The corridors teemed with resonance going about their morning routines, each one blazing in his enhanced perception like a walking advertisement for power he could take. Signal detected, resonant class, phase walker, drain available. Signal detected, resonant class, conductor, drain available. Signal detected, resonant class, seer, drain available. The notifications came faster now, overlapping until his vision resembled a targeting system marking every person within range. His hands shook with the effort of keeping them pressed against his sides. Physical contact meant drain activation, and drain activation meant watching another human being diminish while he grew stronger. Marcus Webb's hollow expression haunted him. The confusion in the boy's eyes when his abilities flickered and died. The way he'd stumbled through the corridor afterward, testing fingers that no longer responded to his will. Kael took to eating alone. Sleep became impossible. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw potential victims highlighted in system notifications. He started using service corridors and maintenance shafts, anything to avoid the main thoroughfares where cadets gathered. But even isolation couldn't silence the whispers in his head. Query: purpose of guilt response. Efficient feeding requires proximity to targets. Current behavior patterns counterproductive. The frequency had developed personality. Its questions came with an almost childlike curiosity, as if it genuinely couldn't understand why he was fighting his nature. Sometimes Kael caught himself about to respond before remembering that engaging with the parasite would only make it stronger. By the 4th day, avoidance became impossible. Zone patrol schedules meant sharing corridors with full resonant squads, their combined signals creating a symphony of temptation that made his teeth ache. He pressed himself against walls as they passed, hands clenched into fists, fighting the urge to reach out. The patrol captain, a grizzled conductor with scarred hands, nodded as they went by. "Morning, Morrow." Signal detected, resonant class, conductor, power level, exceptional. Drain yield, substantial. Recommended action, initiate contact. Kael managed a weak smile and waited until they'd rounded the corner before sagging against the wall. His heart hammered against his ribs, and sweat beaded on his forehead despite the corridor's chill. The worst part was how natural it felt. The hunger wasn't foreign anymore, it had integrated into his nervous system like an additional sense. He could taste resonant power in the air, smell the electromagnetic signatures that marked enhanced humans. His body had adapted to crave what the frequency needed to survive. That evening, he tried to visit the zone perimeter. Maybe proximity to the source would provide answers, or at least distraction from the growing need that gnawed at his insides. The cascade zone stretched beyond the reinforced barriers like a wound in reality. Inside its boundaries, trees grew at impossible angles and the air shimmered with visible sound waves. But as Kael approached the observation point, something unexpected happened. The zone pulsed. Not visibly, the distorted landscape remained unchanged. But he felt it through whatever connection the crystal fragment had created, a rhythmic thrum that seemed to recognize his presence. The alien physics inside the barrier responded to him like a tuning fork matching pitch. Resonance synchronization detected. Source proximity, optimal. Warning, multiple fragment signatures detected. Multiple fragments. Kael stared at the notification, ice forming in his stomach. If there were others like him, other people bonded to pieces of whatever had caused the fracture, then his situation was far worse than he'd imagined. Hunger, 22/100. The counter climbed steadily. Soon it would hit levels that made resistance impossible, and then he'd have to choose between feeding and dying. The frequency made sure he understood the stakes with helpful projections of metabolic collapse. He was still staring at the zone, trying to process the implications of multiple fragments, when footsteps approached from behind. Cadet Morrow. Commander Okafor's voice cut through the evening air like a blade. Kael turned to find the man's imposing silhouette backlit by corridor lighting, his expression unreadable in the shadows. "Sir. We need to talk." Okafor's tone carried weight that made Kael's stomach drop. "My office. Now." The walk back felt like a death march. Had Okafor discovered what happened to Marcus Webb? Did medical scans reveal the stolen Weaver abilities? Or worse, had the commander somehow detected the system interface that turned Kael into a walking threat? They reached Okafor's office in tense silence. The commander unlocked the door and gestured Kael inside, but instead of sitting behind his desk, he activated a privacy shield that bathed the room in white noise. When he turned around, his expression was grim. "Tell me about the crystal fragment."